Hey, what's going on? Luke here. We are in the middle of round one of the 2024 NRL season, and I thought it was time to go ahead and do my ladder predictions. Now, I just want to say, I actually came up with this 1 to 17 pretty much when I was quite drunk, I'll be honest with you. It's probably going to be quite obvious when you see who I have in the top 4, top 8, that sort of stuff. I know last week I did a video where I sort of gave my bold predictions. I talked about my wooden spooners. I think at the time I said the Raiders. I think my minor premiers I said were the Warriors. So I tried to sort of keep that in mind and sort of go off some of the predictions that I'd made. So it's sort of going to make sense, whereas one video I'm not going to be like, oh, well, Raiders going to come last, and then today's video going to be like, well, Raiders going to come first. I'm going to try and keep it somewhat consistent, but there is going to be a few little changes from last week to this week. Obviously, when you have a little bit of time to think about it, and obviously when you're incredibly drunk, you don't make the best decisions. And maybe this 1 to 17 isn't going to be one of the best I've had, but I just thought we'd go with it. I thought it'd be quite funny, be amusing for me, amusing for you, and even if I can try and justify some of these, because I'm not sure I'm going to be able to. Starting off with the wooden spooners, I've actually changed from my previous videos. I've gone with the West Tigers. I think last week I talked about the Raiders, and my reason for the Raiders, I think it still applies, in the sense that they don't really have a set spine. They've got an aging forward pack. They've got a lot of youngsters. And a lot of youngsters who are unproven, they could be okay. They haven't really played too much first grade, even in terms of cup and all that sort of stuff. I don't think they've played too much of that. So remains to be seen what happens with the Raiders. But look, I have got them in at 16. I thought I'd mention that. So as I said, I have the Tigers in last. I don't think it's any real surprise. I feel like if you haven't got the Raiders or the Dragons, you've probably got the Tigers in there at last. There's just a few set teams that are always in there every year. The Tigers have got it the last few years, and based off their trials, based off their, their halves and all that sort of stuff, I don't think they look any better than they did last year, which is crazy. Honestly, they haven't really made too many signings. They do have a new coach in Benji Marshall. What that means, I don't exactly know. Obviously, he's a fantastic player. And because they've brought in a local boy, obviously he's New Zealander, but, a guy who's come through the club, there's going to be a lot of hype about them, a lot of optimism. And, I don't blame the Tigers fans for being optimistic, but just based off the trials, I thought they looked shit, and they were playing some pretty strong sides for their sort of standard, and I think they looked awful. I just remember coming away from the trials, watching it and just thinking that was super underwhelming, considering all the talk about how they're going to be revitalised this year and it's going to be such an improvement and, good signs, all that sort of stuff. I didn't see it, and the more I looked at it, the more I was like, how can I not pick them to come last, considering they've come last the last couple of years? So gone with Tigers at 17th. In 16th, I've already talked about the Raiders. In fact, I talked about them at the previous video. Go and check that out. The Dragons, same thing kind of me said every year. They actually looked pretty good in the trials. So that's why I definitely didn't really think about them being the wooden spooners. I just really couldn't put them any higher though. Just a lot of unknowns, but Shane Flanagan, hate him as a coach, but also we know that he's a good coach. He's won a premiership. In the trials, obviously the trials, you can't really go too much off the trials, even though I just picked the Tigers to come last. But I thought they actually looked like they had some direction. Not really sure what's to go with Zach Lomax on the wing, and they've just signed Leilua and stuff. And obviously they've got a lot of youngsters too who have sort of been around for a few seasons now. So you'd think at some point ball's going to drop with them, and they might sort of, take it to another level, or they'll stay exactly the same. They end up 15th. The Dragons are a hard one to read. Not really too much to be said about them though. Next up, 14th, I have the Dolphins. Basically, Dolphins, pretty good last year. I think they ended up maybe sort of 10th, something along the lines of that. At different points of the season, found themselves in the top 8. Then they dropped off massively, and the big question mark for me is the halves. They have signed some really good players in terms of Flegler, in terms of Herbie Farnworth. So, now that I'm sort of talking about it, Avarillo as well, it's like, maybe they'll be all right. They coach by Wayne Bennett. They probably should be up a little bit higher, but I see them dropping off compared to last year, and this would be considered a drop-off. So yeah, look, that's kind of just my logic there. Don't know if that's good or not. Next up is the Rabbitohs in at 13th. You might be thinking, where the hell's the Bulldogs? You wait. Obviously, biased there. I was drunk. Just keep that in mind. The Rabbitohs in at 13th. Actually got to see them play. One of the few sides we've got to see play going into this video. Honestly, wasn't really liking what I saw from the Rabbitohs. I thought Latrell looked good. Again, Ilias is kind of just there. Cody Walker's another year older. I thought Damien Cook actually looks pretty good. But yeah, it is funny. This is one of the few sides before round one. I probably would have had them a little bit higher, going off one game, and all of a sudden I've got them in 13th. But I feel like the whole forward pack seems to revolve around Cameron Murray, and he just can't do it himself, man. He just can't do it. Colin Matangi as well is obviously there. They've got some other forwards. It's just a matter of I don't know. I think they're pretty light on for props. An aging sort of side as well. In terms of the back line, obviously Campbell Graham's out for good parts of the season. Jack Whiten comes back in, so it's not all doom or gloom for them, but they just rely heavily on a few select players that we all know about. And, in previous seasons, they haven't really delivered, and I kind of don't really see things changing too much. I think at different points throughout the season, they'll be absolute superstars, take away state of origin, all that sort of stuff. And I think it could be struggle streets for the Rabbitohs. But, hey, it could be completely wrong there, especially about this next side too. Could be way off for this one. Cronulla Sutherland Sharks in at 12th. Basically, I guess my thought process of doing this was I'm just going to sort of spice things up a little bit instead of just saying the exact same one from last year with my favourite side in at 6th or whatever. That seems to be kind of what happens with a lot of these videos. But I have gone with the Sharks, and I don't really have too much logic behind that other than I kind of just not really a fan of the Sharks. Not that I don't like them, it's just because they're kind of just the same every year, and they make the finals. And this is why my logic is absolutely terrible, because they seem to make the finals every year. So you think, all right, well, another year, another final series for the Sharks, and they get eliminated first round. That tends to be what happens. But for this one, I've just gone for them to have a complete drop off. Again, I don't really have a reason for it other than I'm just kind of hoping they don't make it, so they, we're going to have an interesting final series, because they kind of don't make a dent in the final series at all. But yeah, Nico Hines has been playing really, really good. At some point, you'd think some of these players who have sort of been carrying them through the regular season, maybe going to have a little bit of an off season. Maybe it's going to be this year. Maybe not. Maybe it's an absolutely awful take. Most likely an absolutely awful take. In at 11th, I had the Cowboys. Another one that I think people are expecting to go really, really good. They haven't really signed anybody. In fact, they've lost Leilua. I don't know, we're going off one good season a couple of years ago, and then last year they were kind of back to normal, let's be real. And now all of a sudden, people are still kind of expecting them to be right up the top somewhere. I was one of those people last year who I was like, well, there's no reason they shouldn't be there last year, and then obviously they kind of shit the bed, and I'm expecting them to shit the bed again this year. Again, it's kind of like they haven't really made any signings. They've lost Leilua, so they're kind of weaker this year. And then you got guys like Chad Townsend, who are another year older. Tamalalo seems to be sort of on the outer up there. A little bit of a strange time for the Cowboys. I can't really get a read on them, so kind of chuck them somewhere in the middle there, in at 11th. Then at number 10, I have the Gold Coast Titans. Basically, I'm expecting them to have a good season and, push for a top 8 spot. Pretty much down to Des Hasler. I rate Des Hasler as a coach. Managing rosters, maybe not so great, but in terms of getting the best out of his players, I think this would be one of the best seasons you see out of the Gold Coast Titans, just in terms of consistency. And definitely wouldn't be surprised if a team like the Titans end up in the top 4 or something with Hasler there. They got a lot of the pieces to be a good side for Feeder, Brimson, even like Jaden Campbell. They've got a lot of raw guys too, who just need that little bit of fine-tuning, and I think Hasler can do that. I think he can take it to a next level. Why I have him in at 10th after saying that, I don't know. Maybe because I have plans to put Des Hasler's old side in there above them, and that is the Manly Warringah Seagulls. Tom Trbojevic is back, looked pretty good overseas. Luke Brooks and Cherry Evans I expect to sort of work well as a combo. Don't necessarily rate Luke Brooks as some amazing player, but I think he's a good balance for Cherry Evans, and Cherry Evans is a good balance for him. That's kind of all I really need to say about Manly. Kind of same old, the new Turbo brother is in there. The backline looks a little bit more, not balanced, but a little bit more consistent. There's kind of no question marks over who's going to play where, as long as Trbojevic is there. Garrick seems to have found his spot in the centres. You got Cooler there as well. The wingers kind of pick themselves. There's no I'm not sure who's going to play where for Manly. They kind of got their 1-17. It's sort of done, and I think that will help them going forward, help them this year. And also, they've, just Trbojevic, he's just that good. He can easily take him into their top 4 side. That's how good he is individually. So I have sort of no reason not to have him in the top 8, but also I just don't want to put them in there. So now moving on to my 8th spot, the top 8, we're finally here. Who have I got there? We've got the Melbourne Storm. Again, just the Storm seems to be in a little bit of a free fall. In terms of just the actual ability, in terms of winning games, they definitely don't seem to be as good. But Papenhuyzen is back, looked decent in the trials to some degree, and I can't really put it past them. Bellamy's last year, they just don't seem like a side. They could literally put out the bloody Tiger side, and I'd still be like, top 8, Craig Bellamy, Melbourne Storm, kid on. it's going to happen. That's kind of my only logic with that. If I was going purely off their actual side themselves, I think their forward pack is incredibly weak. Backline's incredibly weak, apart from like select few players. They just have really good hooker and halves, and just the spine in general. Pappenhausen, if he's fit, even Meany is pretty serviceable fullback. They just have a really good spine that sort of carries them, to be honest with you. But realistically, I don't really have a reason for them to be in the top 8. I just don't have a reason for them not to be there, based off their entire history of their club. Now moving on to 7th spot, I have the Newcastle Knights. Could have them higher. I thought they looked really, really good last year in the back half of the year, and obviously they made a mark in the finals. Ponga wins Dally M. I picked him to win the Dally M 2 years in a row. So by that logic, they have to have a good season. And I've got them in 7th spot. Another side that doesn't really have a reason to drop off. In fact, they've signed Jack Cogger. Could be an improvement on either Hastings or Gamble, depending on the two. I think you got to have Tyson Gamble in there somewhere, because I feel like every team is better off to have a guy like him in their side. Now, it's better when they're like absolutely incredible players. By no means is Tyson Gamble the most skillful player or anything like that, but he's serviceable and he's passionate and he gets the team going, and I think he gets the best out of his teammates. Whereas Jackson Hastings, I'm not really sure. Like, he's a good player, but he can't seem to cement a spot in any team's in. So I'm not really sure what's to go there. And Jack Cogger, we saw how influential he was in the grand final. So I think it's more so, can Jack Cogger sort of play his way into the side? I think Hastings is the front runner. And I think at other clubs, Hastings would probably be like the sure thing, number 7, but it doesn't seem to be the case at the Knights. So anyways, I think competition is good, and they'll be all the better for it. I know they've lost Dom Young, Fitzgibbon and stuff, but they are replaceable. Knights in at number 7. And now on to number 6, we have the Parramatta Eels. You're probably thinking, where the hell's the Bulldogs? Oh, let me get to them. First spot. No, I'm just joking. But the Parramatta Eels are a very good team on paper. Sort of missed a lot of players last year due to injury, suspensions, you name it. I think they're going to be back this year. Generally a good team in the regular season, trouble a lot of the big sides. And then they struggle against some of the weaker ones. But I think this year we'll see a much improved Eel side. And by improved, I mean it's not like an amazing season, but it's still a better one than they've had the last couple of years. Hooker position is a huge dilemma for them, though. They're going to have all the best players every other position, but you got to have a good hooker. You can't sort of be carrying an absolute plotter. I know the Panthers kind of did that in a way with like Mitch Kenny. Like, he's by no means one of the best hookers in the game, but that's the Panthers. Eels can't get away with that. Sorry, Eels, you're in 6th spot. Moving on to 5th spot. Mike Henry, Bankstown Bulldogs. Could have them higher. Obviously, all the omens, them win the premiership, 1994, 2004, 2014, 2024. It's meant to be. Now, I'd love to sit here and say we're going to win the premiership. I would love that, and I think every Bulldogs fan would love that, and even just to keep the whole meme going, that would be fantastic. But at the same time, I can't do that. But even like 5th spot, that's incredibly high. And funnily enough, in previous seasons, I've probably seen some people say the Dogs will get into 5th spot. And then this year, I feel like we've got a much better roster, much more balanced roster. And it's like, oh no, they're going to be competing for the wooden spoon. I don't quite understand that. I've seen some people say that we have a poor roster. I think the forward pack is weaker, but compared to last year, it's much better. And all of our star players last year were basically injured anyways. Then you add in Stephen Crichton, you add in a host of all the other signings too. And I think we've got a way better side. We've actually got some depth this year. So if the injuries that we got last year happen, I think we're okay. In saying that, incredibly delusional for me to have them up there. And like I said, I was super drunk when I made this list. So just keep that in mind. Wasn't exactly thinking rational. I thought it'd be funny to do it, It is funny. I had them in 5th. They don't really have a reason. Don't really want to go into too much depth about it because, it is kind of embarrassing. In saying that, if they do make the top 4 or, top 8 or whatever, absolute genius. If not, I was drunk, okay? I'm just putting it down to that. Moving on to the top 4. Sydney Roosters have them in at 4th. Fantastic win for them over in Vegas. Obviously, it is 1 year, but I've got to say, every year, the Roosters have a good team on paper. They come out, usually play the first couple of games, and you go, they look shit. No sort of cohesion. They look like they've never played together. However, this year, it seems different. It seems like they've actually got their shit together. They actually look like a well-coached side, a well-drilled side. Tedesco looked back, Brandon Smith looked back. Whether that happens throughout the rest of the season, I don't know, but literally the whole off-season, whole last year as well, just been lighting a flame under Tedesco. So wouldn't be surprised to see if he returns to top form. Sam Walker, another year old as well, a lot more experience. Expect good things from him. Add in the rest of the side, and I think they should be okay. Obviously, the whole Lenu thing at the start now, a little, spanner in the works, but I think they can manage him for however long he's going to be out for. Now moving on to third spot, I have the Brisbane Broncos. Obviously, no surprise, the rest of the side, there's the Broncos, Panthers, and Warriors. So they're my 1, 2, 3. Not hard to narrow down. I've got the Broncos in at third, Panthers in at second, Warriors in at first. I'm standing by my decision, have the Warriors in at first from last year. Hey, you got to remember, this is regular season, they're playing at home. And that's why I have the Broncos up there as well. I thought they looked a lot weaker this year, just not only on paper, but when they actually played. I thought they kind of got exposed as, the bench isn't great. The forward pack's really good, but also kind of unbalanced at the same time too. Jordan Ricky, hot and cold. The second row up here, Cora, question marks over him. I mean, he got knocked out early on, so don't want to read too much into that. But just in terms of they've lost Catewell, they've lost Flegler, they've also lost Herbie Farnworth as well, so a lot of strike power. Cobbo moves into the centres, that takes away a lot of firepower as well. And Reece Walsh, fantastic, but he's still got a lot of errors in his game, and would not be surprised if teams sort of start to figure him out. We've seen plenty of players who are better than Reece Walsh, in my opinion, who've had some fantastic years and then got found out the next year. So would not be surprised if that happens. Wouldn't be surprised if Broncos go and bloody win the comp too. Just sort of seems to be how the Broncos are. When you've got Billy Walters in your side, anything can happen. And speaking of winning premierships, I'm ready to talk about the team who I think is going to have a four-peat. I don't think they're going to win the minor premiership, therefore being in second, but I think they're going to win the actual premiership, and that's the Penrith Panthers. Got them in at second spot. Don't really need to talk about them too much. Obviously, they've lost a few players, but they just seem to sort of keep things rolling, keep moving on, keep winning. That's basically the Panthers. Talked about them for 4 years now, so not going to talk about them. The Warriors already did a video where I sort of talked in depth about them, but to me, they've got a really good side. They've got a very well-balanced side. There's no real weaknesses. Tuivasa-Sheck comes back in. You got Kurt Capewell, I just talked about, coming from the Broncos. He seems to bring success with him everywhere. Kind of like James Maloney, just like not as good. Kind of without the accolades, but he's still very good, and wherever he goes, he seems to have success. So credit to Kurt Capewell and credit to the Warriors. I think you're going to win the minor premiership. I think just being at home, playing in front of the home fans, I think they'll just run the momentum from last year, continue things, and then go and win the minor premiership. But guys, that's my 1 to 17. Absolutely awful, I know. Absolutely comical. Can't wait to see all the little comments throughout the season when I have the Bulldogs in at 5th and they're coming 17th. I can't wait for that. It's going to be fantastic. Same can be said about a lot of other sides. Tigers, when they're coming first or something. It's just the nature of the beast making these videos. But guys, I'm going to wrap things up here. Hopefully you did enjoy that one. Hopefully you had a laugh. If you did, make sure you go ahead and smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Super important in terms of growing the channel, especially with the new season starting. You need to ride that momentum. So guys, if you can go ahead and leave a like, subscribe, use the notification bell, very much appreciated. Also, go ahead and chuck me a follow on social media. It's on the screen right now. It's Mr. Luke and YT for the most part. In fact, not even the most part. It's literally for everything. TikTok included, Instagram included. That's what I mostly sort of post on. So go ahead, give me a follow, give me an ad. Also, just want to give a shout out to the members and the super chatters as well. I haven't been streaming as of late too much. I plan on doing it. However, my laptop just keeps dying on me. But shout out to all the members who've stuck solid and been a member in the past, been a member in the future. Go ahead and become one. It really supports the channel. Help me get a new laptop. Let's go. Anyways, going to wrap things up here. Stay tuned for more content on the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you to the next one. See yous.